Я сейчас выйду.
Oke.
Selamat siang Kak Heri.
Selamat siang
Pak.
for everyone. What time in Russia or different time also in Russia?
Anda di hari Rabu 22 Juni 2022. Saya mau menyampaikan hanya selama 1 jam ke depan dalam program Sampai Indonesia Siang. Akan ada 3 suratan utama hari ini. Di antaranya kita bersama yang pertama ini dia ada.
I don't see Elena and Bukanov not yet join our webinar.
50 batai kambing di aliran Sungai Serang. Sejumlah kambing itu diduga karena ada tanda khusus berupa kalung di leher kambing. Selanjutnya, saudara, yang juga disorotan ini ada rumah di desa Rentok, ini Sulawesi Selatan, rusak diterjang puting beliung. Kejadian ini terjadi pada Rabu dini hari tadi. Itu dia sejumlah rumah rusak.
Okay.
Saat ini juga masih didata berapa jumlah pasti kerusakan yang terjadi.
Elena has joined with our webinar.
Kalau yang satu ini, saudara, ada di Malang, Jawa Timur. Sekolah dasar menaruh kecintaannya pada seni wayang kulit sedari kecil. Bahkan karena kecintaannya terhadap seni tradisional, dirinya
Bu Nurul, apakah sudah bisa kita mulai, Bu Nurul?
Indonesia. Sehingga kami masih akan memberikan Sampai Indonesia Siang hari ini.
Halo Bu Nurul.
Sekarang sapi.
Moderator.
Sapi berjenis Kebhinekaan itu memiliki 3 mata.
Алена, привет. Микрофон включи.
Warga desa Kebhinekaan, Kecamatan Banjarjo, Kabupaten Blora, Jawa Tengah, dikeparkan dengan lahirnya anak sapi pagi. Kelahiran anak sapi langka ini membuat warga beramai-ramai datang untuk melihat. Sebenarnya anak sapi tersebut lahir.
Доброе утро.
Здравствуйте, московские коллеги. Доброе утро.
Доброе утро.
Добрый вечер, Алена.
Добрый вечер. Так, я вас не вижу что-то, Александр Николаевич.
Ну, я сейчас проявлюсь.
Hi, hello. Dr. Alexander Popov, Dr. Olmek, Dr. Elena.
Hello.
Hello. What time now in Russia or like Indonesia? We have 3 time zone, and in Jakarta we around I think 1 p.m. right now in Jakarta.
It's the same time.
Владивосток.
The same time in Novosibirsk.
Okay, good.
Sometimes it's Siberia and
Vladivostok, 4 p.m.
Moscow and also Vladivostok.
Moscow 9 a.m. morning. Early morning.
Oke, Bu Nurul, silahkan dimulai sepertinya, Bu Nurul.
Mohon maaf, apa suara saya terdengar?
Terdengar jelas dan merdu, Bu.
Baik, terima kasih Pak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, dan salam kebajikan. Good afternoon from Indonesia and good morning for our speakers in Russia. First of all, we would like to welcome to the Honorable Bapak Dr. Heri Yogeswara MA as the Chairman of the Research Organization for Archaeology, Language, and Literature. Selamat sore, Pak.
Yes.
Welcome to the Honorable Bapak Dr. M. Irfan Mahmud, SS MSc, as the Head of Research Center for Prehistoric and Historical Archaeology. Selamat sore, Pak Irfan. Welcome to the honorable speakers. Good morning to Dr. Elena S. Levanova from the Palaeo-art Center Institute of Archaeology, Russian Academy of Science. Good morning to Dr. Alexander Pakunov from also from the Palaeo-art Center, Institute of Archaeology, Russian Academy of Science. Good morning to Dr. Andrei Vetaberev from Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography. Good morning to Dr. Alexander N. Popov from Far Eastern Federal University. And thank you so much for your time. We are really happy for having you here. I hope you will enjoy this webinar. And welcome to the Honorable Bapak Dr. Lutfi Yondri. Selamat sore Pak, and all of the researcher for Research Center for Prehistoric and Historical Archaeology. And last but not least, to all of the respectable participants that joining us today, we are delighted to welcome you to International Webinar of Multiculturalism Session 5 with the theme of Paleo-art, the stone and the Paleometal age that held by Research Center for Prehistoric and Historical Archaeology, with the purpose to present the development archaeological research in Russia and to compare the similarity and the relation with the archaeological research in Indonesia, and also as an effort to reveal the future research collaboration between archaeologists in Russia and Indonesia. My name is Nurul Adlia Purnamasari, and I'm going to be the host and moderator for today's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, in this special occasion, we have several agendas as follows. First is opening by Master of Ceremony, and the second is opening speech by Bapak Dr. Heri Yogaswara as the chairman of the Research Organization of Archaeology, Language, and Literature. And the third is prologue of discussion by Bapak Dr. Lutfi Yondri M. Next, it will be continued with presentation by our speaker and also question and answer session. Last is closing. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to invite Bapak Dr. Heri Yogaswara MA as the chairman of the Research Organization for Archaeology, Language, and Literature to deliver some sentences, and also we are respectfully asked to Pak Heri to officially open this webinar. For Pak Heri, time and stage is yours. Silakan Pak.
Okay, thank you, Bu Nurul. Very good afternoon for participant in the Indonesian Western time zone, and I think good morning for colleague from Russia, especially for Dr. Elena S. Levanova, Dr. Alexander Pukhanov, Dr. Andrei V. Tabarev, and Dr. Alexander and Popov. I feel sorry if wrong pronunciation, except for Popov, because Popov is quite Indonesian name. For Sundanese become Popov, because P become P in our Sundanese language. I think this afternoon or this morning, that's really good time for us to have this international webinar hosted by Research Center of Prehistory and History, research organization of we call BRIN, and then first of all, I would like to introduce the new research organization in Indonesia. In Indonesia now we have we call BRIN, Badan Riset dan Inovasi Nasional, or National Board for Research and Innovation, as a new organization, as integration from several entities of research center and research organization in Indonesia previously, because before there are many research organizations in Indonesia, but right now I think there are only 3 entities of research in Indonesia. First, we call BRIN, BRIN. Second, in the universities, and the third is we call the independent research organization, from NGO, private, and etc. I think that's the new scheme or new mechanism of research in Indonesia. And then in BRIN, we have we call Research Organization of Archaeology, Language, and Literature. Previously, archaeology has a center, namely Arkenas, National Archaeology Center. For language and literature, we call the Badan Bahasa, the Board of National Language Center, something like that. And also research center related with religious and heritage, yeah, in Indonesia. And right now in research organization of archaeology, language and literature, we have 7 research center. The 3 research center related with archaeology, 3 research center related with language and literature, including the oral tradition, and also we have 1 research center related with religion, heritage, and also civilization issues. That I think our organization. And we recognize, if we talk about Russia, actually Russia is really involved with the early stage of development in Indonesia, yeah, because I think many road construction, bridge building, yeah, at the time, yeah, during 40s or 50s, Russia have great contribution, yeah, including in human resource development, yeah. Some scholars, yeah, study in Russia and other Eastern Europe countries, and we do hope our webinar is we can start with collaboration with another issues related with the archaeology and other issues of culture. And as we also recognize the Palaeo-art as one of our theme of discussion. The Palaeo-art is a product of universal culture, and also we recognize every region, country, state, nation have uniqueness of what's so-called Palaeo-art in every country. And also with or through this webinar, we can share our experience related to research and knowledge production related with the issues of prehistory and history archaeology. And also, as maybe well known, that in Indonesia, especially in Maros and Pangkep of South Sulawesi, we have what's so-called one of the oldest site of archaeology, age of 50,000 before Christ, and also in Sangkurilang of East Kalimantan, 40,000 before Christ, as oldest of for what's so-called prehistoric art. And indeed, I think Indonesia is still a rich country for archaeological research from the Paleolithic era, from the metallurgic area, history, and also many area research related with ethnoarchaeology. That I think one of potentiality for us, Indonesian Russian archaeologists, to collaborate research related those kind of issue. And also we recognize, yeah, in the early age of complex society that also found many metallurgic element in many sites in Indonesia. And I think indeed this is one potentiality for research between two countries. And according to archaeologists, because actually I am anthropologist, in the year 2019, in the one site in Indonesia was found DNA of Deissovan, yeah, and I think age or dating back on 7,600,000 BC, yeah, in the site of Leang Paninge, Marov of South Sulawesi. And I think and at the time there was a question that maybe probability genetic relationship between race in Nusantara Archipelago or Indonesian area, and Siberia in Russia. Perhaps, yeah, perhaps this webinar give hints about that question. Maybe can give inspiration to answer that question 3 years ago was really viral in Indonesian archaeological community. Yeah, and if we with DNA of Deissovan, of course, this presentation from for resource person, for speaker from Russia, could explore the characteristic of material culture at the time that's recognized in Indonesia, maybe not really pay attention from the previous research. And then also, if Russian has what's so-called Oldovan site that approximately 1,595 million years. In Indonesia, we have Sangiran that approximately 2 million years that reach found of the human and also animal artifact. And of course, this is a challenge for scientists from 2 countries to make maybe discover the new theory about the human evolution through research collaboration. Perhaps we can start now from this our meeting. Again, I think I would like to say thank you for all speakers from Russia, and also thank you for, of course, moderator. Thank you also for the Research Center for Archaeology, Prehistory, and History, especially research group on Pleistocene and Holocene. And of course, anybody who make this international webinar happen. Now, I think enjoy discussion, and I formally open this discussion. Thank you, moderator.
Terima kasih Pak Heri. Now let me invite to Bapak Dr. Lutfi Yondri for delivering a prologue of discussion. Untuk Pak Lutfi, time and the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bu Nurul. Good afternoon for all webinar participants. This is a confidence of the latest technology, I think. Also separate by time and distance apart. We can meet on a webinar forum. Now I must say to greeting also, like Harry says, good morning to Dr. Elena and Pukanov. So good afternoon for Dr. Andrei in Siberia, for Pak Popov in Vladivostok, also for all participants of this webinar. We know Russia is the largest country in the world, which is across 2 continents, Asian, also Europeans. I think a big area of Russia is around 9 times larger than Indonesia. Until now, Indonesia may not know much about the variety of archaeological remains and how the development of archaeological research in Russia. Perhaps in prehistoric research, we only hear about the existence of Deissovan DNA and not who have contact with prehistoric Indonesian human in the past. This development of archaeological research in Russia region is quite interesting to observe, and one day it can be compared with those developed in Indonesia, and it's possible that later it will open to archaeological research collaborations. I think for RNC, Pak Andrei and Dr. Andrei and Popov, Andrei Tavarev and Alexander Popov had come to Indonesia and had saw several archaeological sites in West Java, especially because the time is limited. Andrei and Popov only see several sites in West Java. In this webinar, we will observe about the development research of archaeological discovery in Russia, which will be presented by Dr. Elena Selenakova and Dr. Alexander Pukanov from Institute of Archaeology, Moscow, Dr. Andrei Vladimir Tavarev, Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography, Novosibirsk in Siberia, also from Dr. Alexander Nikolai Popov, Far Eastern Federal University. Thank you very much, Bu Nurul. I give you the time for you as a moderator in this webinar. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Lutfi. Now before we continue, let me read some rule of the webinar. We have around 3 hours for all of the activities. It's divided into 2 sessions of presentation. So 1 session will be taken by 2 speakers and 1 session for discussion. Every session will take 1 hour. Jadi kita punya waktu sekitar 3 jam untuk 2 sesi presentasi dan diskusi. Setiap sesi presentasi diberikan waktu 1 jam dan akan langsung diisi secara panel oleh 2 orang narasumber. Sisa waktu 1 jam akan kita gunakan untuk sesi diskusi. In the end of the presentation, I'm going to translate some of the important points from the speakers presentation in bahasa. Jadi di akhir presentasi saya akan mencoba untuk menerjemahkan beberapa poin penting yang disampaikan oleh pembicara ke dalam bahasa Indonesia. Every audience, you can ask a question by typing your question in the chat column, both in Zoom or YouTube, and I will read it to the speakers. But you can also ask question directly by pushing the button of the raise hand, and I will invite you to talk. Jadi bagi peserta yang ingin bertanya, silahkan menuliskan pertanyaannya di kolom chat, Zoom maupun YouTube, dan saya akan bacakan kepada pembicara. Boleh dalam bahasa Indonesia, boleh dalam bahasa Inggris. Tapi jika ingin bertanya secara langsung kepada para pembicara, silahkan menekan tombol raise hand dan akan kami persilahkan untuk berbicara. Now without reducing so many time, we are going to gain the most waiting session, that is presentation from our speaker. Let me invite to Dr. Elena S. Levanova and Dr. Alexander Pakunov to deliver a presentation about current project of the Institute of the Archaeology Russian Academy of Science for study of Palaeo-art. To Mrs. Elena and Mr. Alexander, please take your time.
Good morning. Well, start with my presentation. Well, it's okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you very much for this invitation. We are going to present today our project, several projects of our Center of Paleo-art Studies of Institute of Archaeology, Academy of Science of Russia. We are living in Moscow. My colleague Alexander Pakhudov now is in France, but we have a lot of information about our project, and I only want to present 2 projects. Well, Far East of Russia, Amur region, and Chukotka. Well, Center of Paleo-art Studies has existed for 7 years, during which time we have carried out field work almost every year on completely different art sites. We in several parts of our country, but my project is in Far East of Russia. Priority research of our center, technical, technological, and stylistic features of rock art studies, study of pigments, the possibility of using natural science research methods to solve the problem of studying of archaeological sites, and monitoring and study of rock art sites using modern methods of non-contact documentation. This region, Amur region, on this map, you can see several rock art sites: Sikachalian, Sheremetyevo, near Khabarovsk in Far East of Russia, and here on Chukotka region, site Pektemel. About these sites I would like to talk today. Sikachalian, Sheremetyevo, and other rock art sites in Far East. It's a province of rock art sites on Lava and Ussuri River on border with China. And petroglyph of the lava movements can be dated from Epipaleolithic time, maybe Neolithic era, to the early Middle Ages. It's very hard to date our petroglyphs, but now we only can talk about this very big dates, yes. And the complete description of this site is published by Alexey Akladnikov in last 50 years. And now Sikhachalan is the largest cluster of petroglyphs on far east of Russia. And in 2003, this rock art site was placed into UNESCO tentative World Heritage Site list, and it's a unique rock art site in Russia because it was the first site which was placed in this tentative list of heritage, but not in World Heritage list. Well, it's a very famous rock art site in this region, and every year we walked on this site because it's have more than 140 boulders with petroglyphs with very interesting motifs of rock art, like this face mask, like animals, like anthropomorphic figures. And every year we found something new about it. I would like to talk today. Another site, petroglyph of Sheremetyevo, this one. It's this site located on the right bank of the river on border with China.
Sudah Ibu makan, sudah kita taruh di belakang.
There are three known locations of petroglyphs on rock surfaces and on boulders. It's very interesting and very nice site, but it's very hard to walk because it's territory of border with China. Because of it, we can't use some methods which we used on Sikhachalan and other sites. Every year we found new images on boulders, on surfaces of engravings, rock engravings. Last 10 years, the petroglyphs of this region, of Amur-Ussuri province rock art, have been monitored by our institute and by laboratory SSDA. And the project was triggered by observed deterioration of sites of Amur Valley, affected both by pressure of increased touristic activities and periodical flooding of boulders, because we last 10 years we have very catastrophic flooding. Because of it, we can't find some boulders with petroglyphs each year. Yes, we can find, but we find something new every year. It's very interesting because these sites living some life, very strange. Well, field works of Far Eastern sites during last year were aimed on accurate and mapping and documenting of sites and surfaces by means of aerial photography, ground photography, laser scanning, and photogrammetric processing on digital photographs. We use vertical, oblique, and combined aerial photography to document all landscape with petroglyphs. Well, it's very nice because we want to Sheremetyevo petroglyphs. We want to do some virtual images of rock art sites, and the results of this, some results of our works you can find on our sites. I would like to talk about it later, but For each site, we have some GIS-based data set of 3D models of stones and surfaces with petroglyphs. This resulted in finding the Gerwings, which was discovered by Kladnikov, which you can find each year. And today, the total of 140 boulders and surfaces with rock Gerwings have been documented, including previously undocumented. It's the model, 3D model of Sikachalian 2, the point of Sikachalian rock art site, when you can find all boulders with petroglyphs, and later you can open each boulder, yes, find 3D model of boulder with petroglyphs, and you can see all engravings on our site. Well, I would like to talk about Pectimel. Because of it, I wouldn't talk about some technical methods to use to do this 3D model, but it's very interesting, and I would like to talk about some new images, because each year we can find some new images, not only on the site. Yes, we can find some images on 3D modeling, and it's interesting because we don't have many opportunities to work on site, because the last 10 years okay, thank you. Because last 10 years we have very catastrophic flooding on Ussuri and Amur River, and now we have more opportunity to work in Moscow with our 3D modeling to find some new images. Yes, it's very interesting method to work with rock art site. Well, all results you can find on our site of this project. Our rock art in English, it have all translation to English, and we have a catalog of sites, a catalog of petroglyphs, surfaces with petroglyphs, and all materials about methods which we accept on this rock art site. And another project is Pectimel on north of Chukotka. It's very big rock art site and very unusual for our provinces of rock art. And in this site we worked last year. Well, it's the northeast of Asian continent, and this rock art site have about 300 panels, surfaces with original and unusual petroglyphs. It's region of tundra, yes, and almost 40 kilometers from the East Siberian Sea. The recording map, yes, it's here. Recording and research of the rock art site was undertaken by Nikolai Dikov in Soviet time, but between 2055 and this year, we have only several expeditions on this site, because it's very hard to destinate this rock art site. And the main rock art locations are concentrated within the 1 kilometer long area on the sandstone and rock outcrops along the right bank of Pectimel River. Some rock art motifs at Pectimel petroglyphs was determined by specific economic and cultural patterns of the remote region, and it's very interesting that we have many images of reindeer, but we have to a lot of sand with well, yes, and also the rock art site is located over than 40 kilometers from the seashore. The analysis of these motifs demonstrated that they include both the motifs related to the life of the tundra, life of the tundra, as well as maritime population activity. But we don't have any strong dating of this rock art site. We accepted the dating of first millennium after Christ, yes, but we don't have any strong dating, and it's a very big problem for understand the cultural, yes, cultural dating of this site. Well, it's our reindeer, and very interesting motif of our rock art site. It's motif with which depicts female anthropomorphic figures. Quite often the female characters wear mushroom-shaped hats, and sometimes this mushroom is above or on the head of the anthropomorphic figure, on occasion even replacing the head. Well, there are images of mushroom with heads, with double of or triple caps position above the other, and almost the anthropomorphica show full face with some of them in dance-like position. Yes, it's very rare motif for our rock art site. Yes, and in Russia we have we don't have some, well, something else. Yes, something else motifs. And to understand our reason to work on this site, yes, it's enough our mushrooms woman. And to understand the reason to work on this site, I would like to talk about some reason to documentation. Yes, because it's very hard. It's very hard to visit this site, and because of it, we return to continue the documentation and create a virtual copy of the site, like on Amuri and Ussuri region, which is because this site is very extremely difficult to visit. Well, we don't have now the site of Pictemir, but we have some materials of our 3D modeling of all bank river Pictemir, all outcrops with petroglyphs on Pictemir, and now we are creating 3D-dimensional map because we would like to do some total copy, yes, of all 300 surfaces with petroglyphs, but copy of landscape too, yes. And now we have 90 surfaces with petroglyphs. Well, it's part of our bank of river with surfaces with petroglyphs more than 70 meters. And here you can see some part with surfaces with petroglyph. All it's 3D model of surfaces and 3D model of outcrops. And here we have a model with surfaces with petroglyphs. Well, now we have only 90 surfaces with petroglyphs on 3D model, but this year we would like to work on this site to have a lot of all surfaces with petroglyphs, all virtual copy of all part of this rock art site. Well, it's one of our surface with this anthropomorphic mushroom woman and male, it's female with mushroom on her heads. And here, this one, well, it's some methods to use the 3D model of surface for do these engravings. Well, to understand better what we can find on this site, I would like to present small video about our work, not about work, about landscape of this site. I would like to start it. Well, I would like to finish my talking and thank you for your attention. I would like to present my colleague Alexander Pokhunov, who would like to talk about another site project of our center, because it's more, maybe will be more interesting for Indonesia, because it's very famous in Russia, cave with rock art. And thank you. I would like to stop it. Okay, if you have some question.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Yes, thank you so much, Mrs. Elena. Let me translate some of your important points of presentation in bahasa. Jadi, Mrs. Elena menjelaskan beberapa proyek penelitian yang telah dilakukan oleh Palaeo-art Center Institute of Archaeology Russian Academy of Science pada beberapa situs penting yang menjadi fokus utama adalah seni cadas di lembah Sungai Amur Unsuri dan Sungai Chukotka. Berbagai motif gambar cadas berhasil didokumentasikan menggunakan teknologi seperti fotografi udara, fotografi darat, scanning laser, dan scanning laser untuk menciptakan dokumentasi secara 3 dimensi dengan hasil yang luar biasa, hasil dokumentasi yang luar biasa seperti yang tadi ditampilkan oleh Mrs. Elena pada presentasinya. Baik, Bapak dan Ibu, now we are going to the second session of presentation. Let me invite Dr. Andrei Vetabarev and Dr. Alexander N. Popov for delivering a presentation about archaeology of the Stone and Paleometal age in Russian Far East. For Dr. Andrei and Dr. Alexander, please take your time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes. And Alexander Pokhunov, you. Oops.
Yeah,
Андрей
I'm here.
Андрей Владимирович, может быть, закончит Александр? Алло, алло. Александр Владимирович.
Алена, я боюсь, уже нам тут все дали.
Что дали?
Okay, okay. Do you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we hear.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me to express our gratitude, first of all, to the organizers of this wonderful meeting. And I would like to underline that this is a kind of really historical event, because this is the first meeting of Russian and Indonesian archaeologists in such format. And here from Russian side, we have 3 groups from Moscow, which is the capital of Russia, from Novosibirsk, one of the biggest scientific centers in Siberia, and Far Eastern Federal University, which is the biggest Russian university in the Far Eastern zone of Russia. I also would like to thank the organizers for the chance to present some of our materials to Indonesian colleagues. And of course, for today, we can just demonstrate some overviews, some very short presentations and some basic materials. But I think and I'm sure that this is a very important step. And again, thank you so much, terima kasih. And let's move to our presentation, which is an archaeology of the stone and Paleometal ages, Russian Far East. So let us move to the map again. Here we see 2 zones. The first zone, this is a Russian Far East with the parts of neighboring countries such as Japan, China, North and South Korea. And also I made a point on this map, the territory of Indonesia, of course, which is a great distance, but as we see, we are sharing such topics as coastal and island worlds. And what was happening in the coastal and island worlds, starting from the first appearance of Homo sapiens. Yes, in whole, Siberia is a territory where we have very ancient races of humans and pre-humans. For example, in the territory of Siberia, we have some regions where we have the coexistence of modern humans, anatomically modern humans, of Homo neanderthalensis and some Denisovans. But if we move to the territory of the Far East, to the Pacific zone, we meet with the different situation. Archaeology is a science about facts. And according to facts, according to archaeological finds and radiocarbon dates, the earliest traces of Homo sapiens in the Russian Far East and Japanese archipelago are not older than 37,000 before present. We know exactly that there are several migrations from the continental part of Asia, Central Asia, Siberia, and China to the coastal zone of the Far East, and approximately about 35,000 before present, we have first examples of stone tools and traces of human activity on the coast in the island zone. What is interesting on this map, I pointed the possible routes of migration from the territory of China, from the territory of Korean Peninsula to the island world, to the Japanese archipelago. And even during the highest point of last glacial age, the territory of Japanese archipelago was separated from continent. So first, Homo sapiens, they migrated from territory of coastal world to Japanese archipelago by sea. They used any types of watercraft. This is very interesting and intriguing. Speaking about the lithic industry, yes, today it was mentioned in the introductory that in Siberia and in Indonesia, they have very old traces of lithic industries like Sangiran in Indonesia and complexes in Siberia. But again, in the Far Eastern region, we don't have lithic industries older than 30,000 before present. And we don't have exact radiocarbon determinations for them. First of all, because of the very acidic soils and the poor preservation of organic materials. Anyway, there are some complexes in the Russian Far East with the examples of industries which looks really archaic. For example, they are based on pebble technology or on the technology of retouched flakes and some pen points. For the period of 12,000 before present, we have clear manifestations of two types of industries, mostly with blades. This is the exploration of big blade cores, and also the exploration of microcores. During this period, the lithic industry is very interesting and with a lot of instruments. So toolkit is very rich. We have tools on blades, microblades, on bifaces. We have the bifacial points, knives, and lots of tools for woodworking. If we will move to the Neolithic, the next period, this is interesting because the Far East is a specific territory in terms of the understanding of the Neolithic. First of all, this is a very long period. If we will take the carbon dates, we will see that the duration of this period is even bigger than 10,000 years. For archaeological materials, we use such term as Neolithic cultures, which means the unity of sites, dates, and archaeological materials on a specific territory. And of course, we have a kind of periodization, the sequence of archaeological cultures in the Neolithic. We also use such terms as Neolithic epoch and periods. For the territory of Russian Far East, we have initial, early, middle, late Paleolithic. For the territory of Japanese islands, for example, we have Neolithic, which calls Domon. And this Domon has 6 periods. We also use such term as Neolithization. Neolithization is a process with the opposite to the Neolithic revolution as a rapid change. Neolithization is a process. Also, in most parts of this region, agriculture appears later than in continental East Asia, for example, in China. And this is also the peculiarity of this region. What is the principal marker of the beginning of the Neolithic? The very early appearance of pottery, of clay containers. For the Russian Far East, for example, we have about 20 such sites. And if you will take calibrated dates, it's about 16,000 before present. For the Japanese archipelago, we have more than 250 sites. So the origin of pottery, the origin of clay containers started in the Far Eastern zone, but not in one place. There are several areas like Russian Far East, territory of China, and territory of the Japanese islands. And it's necessary to underline that pottery industry during all Neolithic period was very rich with a great variety of forms, shapes, ornamentation. We have a number of vessels devoted to the everyday activity, for ritual activity, for burials, so on and so on. So burnt clay was very popular material to express different purposes. Also, lithic industry. It was very developed and include not only retouched technology, but also polished instruments. What is our real problem? I mentioned this, the acidity of soils and almost the total absence of organic materials, including burials, instruments from organic materials, remains of valence, and so on and so on. Anyway, the art expressed in clay and in stone is very effective, very interesting, and it has a lots of symbolical meanings. It's a very interesting topic for study, and interesting topic to compare the ancient art in different regions of the Pacific zone. I told that we have a problem with organic materials, but in some archaeological contexts, as caves, rock shelters, and especially in shell mounds, we have very good examples of organic remains and also the remains of some dwelling constructions. And it's possible to do even some reconstructions of these dwelling constructions. As for the territory of the Russian Far East, the burial complexes are very rare. But one of such complexes is situated on the coast of the Japanese Sea, not far from Vladivostok. And my colleague Alexander Popov was excavating an extremely interesting cemetery in the shell mound with several clusters of burials, including single burials, double burials, collective burials, which give us a very interesting information, not only archaeological, but also anthropological. We know the presence of some exotic materials, which is the illustration of contacts and trade exchange in the Neolithic period. And of course, thanks to this site, we have some preliminary DNA data, which is also a very prospective direction. We are developing also the experimental archaeology, including the percussion of obsidian and other raw materials, and practice to use these instruments in different operations. This also could be a kind of direction of exchange of ideas and cooperation with Indonesian colleagues. I mentioned a couple of publications about DNA analysis. They were published in very prestigious journals recently, and this gives us the information about possible well, how it's possible to interpret the earliest migrations in this region. Next period is the Paleometal period. This is really similar with the situation in Indonesia, where the arrival of metal was complex. So all metals, copper, iron, gold, and sometimes silver, they came all together. In one complex, we have manifestations of different types of metallurgy. But in any case, we know exactly that there were no, for a long period, there were no local metal working centers in the Russian Far East, and mostly these artifacts were imported from neighboring territories. And another phenomenon is the presence of some stone replicas of bronze and iron weapons like daggers, points, knives, and other types of instruments on blade-shaped items. Also, for the Paleometal period, we have a number of pottery industries, different types of vessels, different types of their functions, different types of ornamentation. So the period of Paleometal is also very rich of archaeological material and a very interesting object for study. Again, I would like to underline that in spite of the problem of acidic soils, we also have several sites with burials with a very interesting ritual objects and the ritual practice, how to bury people in shells with stones, with traces of fire. One of such sites is represented by this burial. It belonged to Yankovskaya culture, which is exactly on the coast of the island. And of course, it's really hard for me to trace all possible directions and subjects and the topics for possible cooperation. But of course, it's very rich. And I would like to, I'm sure that it's possible for us to develop cooperation, including exchange of ideas, including visits of our colleagues to archaeological sites, participation in archaeological projects, field projects, observation and work with collection, online and offline conference in both our countries, and as a kind of dream task, the organization and implementation of the first joint Russian-Indonesian archaeological excavations. I think that our generation is possible to do and to realize this dream. So, once again, terima kasih. Thank you for your attention, and let us look for the productive ways and forms of cooperation in archaeology. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Your presentation is really interesting. I love to see the very rich of archaeological living in Russia. Thank you so much. Now let me translate some of important points from your presentation, Bapak dan Ibu. Seperti yang tadi kita lihat dalam presentasi yang dilakukan oleh narasumber, menjelaskan beberapa data arkeologi yang ada di Rusia, termasuk dari zaman batu dan zaman Paleometal, yang berusia sekitar 16.000 sampai 3.000 BP dengan temuan berupa gerabah, sistem pemakaman dari masa Neolitik, perunggu dan gerabah. So sorry, I'm leaving some of important point from your presentation. That's what I can take, and I can see that there is some project for collaboration. Jadi Bapak dan Ibu narasumber memberikan beberapa rencana dalam bentuk kerjasama penelitian dengan Indonesia, termasuk diantaranya adalah kunjungan situs, analisis artefak, dan konferensi secara online atau daring. Baik Bapak dan Ibu, kita akan melangkah ke sesi selanjutnya. We are going to the next session. I will invite some question in the chat column, or I can let some audience that want to ask a question directly to the speaker. Just please raise your hand. Bapak dan Ibu, bagi yang ingin bertanya secara langsung, bisa silahkan untuk menekan tombol raise hand dan akan saya persilahkan untuk berbicara.
I'm sorry, can we demonstrate the presentation of Alexander Pokhunov? We lost it. Yes.
Oh yes, let me invite Mr. Alexander Pokhunov to giving a presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I should present from my car because the internet at home is broken. But I hope that everything will be okay. Sorry. Is everything okay? Do you see the presentation?
Yes, yes, you can see.
Excuse me, colleagues. Yeah, okay. At the beginning, I would like to say thank you for the organizing team and our colleagues from Novosibirsk for the invitation. Today, I will present brief results of the analysis of pigments and recipes of different pans that were used in Kapava cave. The results were obtained by the combination of various macroanalytical methods like scanning electron microscopy, transmission electron microscopy, and micro-Raman, as well as imaging techniques like spectral imaging and reflection transformation imaging. So, the Kapava Southern Ural Mountains. The cave is situated at the river bank of Belaya River. It's a really huge cave. Is more than 3 kilometers length. Kapava cave is a two-level structure of chambers, corridors, and galleries connected by passages. There are only 4 chambers with paintings at the cave. Dome chamber, chamber of science, and chamber of chaos at the first level, and the chamber of drawings at the second level. Paintings depict extinct species of Ice Age animals, including mammoths, horses, rhinoceros, and also several geometric motifs in shape of trapezium, triangles, and other forms. All the images are made in red color. Black pigment were used only for outlining of the red figures and as an additional part of the red paint. There are a lot of features in each chamber in the cave. For example, traces of paint on the floor, pigment pieces, powders of the pigment, charcoal, and personal ornaments with traces of the pigment in the cultural layer. In the Chamber of Chaos, during the last years, some places for storage of paint materials were found. Coals, caches, because they're usually located between the stones that is were hidden. Charcoal and bone materials retrieved from the cultural layer yielded calibrated radiocarbon dates in the range from 16 to 20,000 years before present. But some evidence of earlier visits are also present. The restoration works completed by the leadership by Eudal revealed a large painting of Bactrian camel of presumably Paleolithic, Upper Paleolithic age. The age of a canvas and overgrowth outside shows a large time window when the painting would have been created. The narrowest time window was identified by uranium-thorium dating in the Chamber of Chaos, where the youngest age of canvas flow stone is 36 Ka, and the oldest age of overgrowing flow stone is 14.5 Ka. According to the data of paleoclimatists, the paint was applied to a dry wall and then were quickly covered with calcite. But some parts of the image were exposed to water flows, as seen through degraded parts of the camel images. The studies of the newly uncovered image of the camel allowed to reveal paint recipes, which was unique due to the bad state of the preservation of the restored images. The clearest contour of the image of trapezium-like sign coincident with the image in the infrared range. The comparable hue of the dark central part of the camel figure and the well-preserved geometric motif to the right of the camel suggests that both were created with the paint of a similar composition. Artists in Kapava worked either with hematite-based pigments produced with mineral hematite and also red ochre. The analyses have revealed that the dark paint of trapezium contains both hematite and charcoal. Such mixture has also been identified on the sample from the belly of the camel. Small particles of charcoal are also found in the sample of the paint from the degraded part of the paintings. Since the sampling was happened immediately after the panel was uncovered on the calcite, the presence of charcoal particles cannot be a contamination. It's a part of the paint recipe. On the floor of the chamber of chaos were found numerous traces of storage, preparation, and also transportation of the hematite with high grains. There are several caches as well as drops of paint on stones, including some of them under the paintings. Comparison of hematite crystal size in the caches and paintings allowed to conclude grinding as a step of the painting preparation. Paint made using high-grain hematite or specularite that are common only on the first level of the cave and have been found only in two chambers, at the chamber of chaos and at the dome chamber. In one case, specularite and red ochre were used at the same painting simultaneously. At the chamber of chaos, one of the geometric motif was made in orange color. The painting contains hematite with small, about 200 nanometers disc-shaped particles. This type of pigment also occur in different chambers in the cave. The chambers, at least two other habits of hematite crystals have been found. They contain specific and spheric or fibrous particles of hematite. The strong evidence of using heat treatment for the production of hematite were found by using transmission electron microscopy and synchrotron X-ray diffraction. One of the crayons contained yellow and red pigment simultaneously. Electron diffraction pattern proved that the yellow mineral is goethite and it's covered by the red hematite. We also found as sorry. We also found a small pores and hematite crystals that was formed during the degradation of goethite. Sorry. As a result of our studies, the scheme of pigment transformation and paint preparation was created. The most characteristic components of the paint are highlighted in red. Ancient artists were very skillful in pigment processing. They were used different raw materials, and they also have an ability to make admixtures to create paint of various shades of red. They will also demonstrate high ability in pigment transformation. In other words, some basic concepts of chemistry. Dear colleagues, thank you for your attention, and sorry for my child, but today in France is break day in the school, so we should present together. Yeah.
No problem.
So, if you have some question, I will be pleased to answer.
Thank you so much. Baik Bapak dan Ibu, beberapa poin penting yang bisa saya tangkap dari presentasi Bapak Alexander. Beliau menjelaskan mengenai Gua Kakova yang terletak di Republik Bashkortostan yang sebagai salah satu kars terbesar di lereng barat Provinsi Ural Selatan. terkenal karena lukisannya. Gua Kapova juga merupakan situs arkeologi dengan lapisan budaya Paleolitik awal, di mana potongan oker ditemukan di situs tersebut yang memiliki keterkaitan dengan artefaknya. Deskripsi dan karakteristik dari geokimia dari potongan pigmen bisa digunakan untuk membedakan yang mana yang diproses melalui penggilingan, penghancuran, dan pembentukan atau secara manual, natural, dan kalinasi. Hasil penelitian menunjukkan berbagai aktivitas yang melibatkan pigmen, menunjukkan pentingnya oker bagi penghuni gua Paleolitik awal, dan pengetahuan mendalam tentang sifat pigmen serta kemampuan untuk mengubah mineral untuk mendapatkan warna merah. Baik Bapak dan Ibu, bagi seluruh peserta yang ingin bertanya, boleh silahkan menuliskan pertanyaannya melalui kolom chat dan akan saya bacakan. Apabila ada yang ingin bertanya secara langsung, silahkan raise hand dan akan saya persilahkan untuk berbicara. Baik, saya akan share. Oh, there is one question to Mrs. Elena. Let me read. It's from Bapak Uri Handoko. The question is like this. Based on the finding of rock art in Russia, is there any meaning to the Asian religions? Because in Indonesia, in general, in most rock art, there is always the meaning about religion and belief, such as rejecting reinforcement, prayer, and hope, and there is also description of the ancestral spirit or another. Mrs. Elena, could you please answer the question?
Yes, I have already answered. Many rock art sites in Russia are associated with some religion, but we have a lot of sites, different epochs. Because of it, we can't answer only about religion. Yes, it can be terminated with some hunting sense and a lot of reason we have. We can find because it's very different epochs. I think that we don't have any one answer to this question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me pick up another question from Bapak Agung Gumilar. It maybe can wait.
Pak Lufti raised hand, I think, moderator.
With Pak Lutfi.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Pak
Lutfi, please.
Instructed presentation, Elena. I think it's very hard to read your sites and very difficult to do your research in your sites. From your presentation, I didn't see the community or people living around your sites. I want to hear you explain about how the people around the site in the past and how the people the last time make it the remains in the past. Thank you, Aaron.
Well, on Chukotka now living some people of Chukcha, yes, but now near the Pictimal site we don't have any groups of Chukcha. Well, only 10 years ago, another expedition when they were Chukotka, they were talking with Chukcha people, but this site they it's not now some religion place of Chukcha, and now it's abandoned absolutely. On Amur River, on the Suri, we have some archaeological sites near this rock art sites. On Chukotka, yes, we do have some Neolithic, maybe Neolithic archaeological sites, but it's very pool of materials or sites, and because of which we can't use some archaeological materials for dating the sort of rock art sites. On Amur and Ussuri region, we have not a lot, but some archaeological materials. Because of it, we can dating this rock art, but with petroglyphs, it's always we have a lot of problem with dating, because we don't have this rock art materials in archaeological site, and because of which we can't use strong archaeological dates to dating our rock art. But now on Amur River, near the Sikachalian site, are living some group of Nanai people. They intend to talk about the heritage, that this rock art is heritage of Nanai people, but we don't have some strong features of this rock art to think that it's Nanai rock art. But these questions too don't have some answer, unfortunately. But now archaeological, the archaeologists think that it's Neolithic and more Neolithic time rock art, some part of this rock art on Sikachalian and Amur River, but maybe some part is of Nanai people, because these sites were visited a lot of time, maybe 3, 4, 5 thousands years. We don't have one answer to this question, unfortunately. I have answered.
Have you found the settlement in the past around the site? The past culture and the deposit from the soil, and also from the excavation, you have found some archaeological material to explain about the rock art related with the rock art. Okay.
Here we don't have some pigment on this site, and we don't have some archaeological materials to date. We don't have material to do this engravings, yes, in archaeological sites, and we don't have any material to date it with absolutely dating. Only 3 absolutely dates we have from Pictemel, but it's not from the part with rock engraving. Yes, it's another part of site with Neolithic, Neolithic, yes, materials, but don't have any materials which we can use to date rock art. Well, we would like to work in this.
Yeah, very hard research, I think.
Yes, it's hard.
Difficult to research, hard to do research in your sites. Okay, thank you, Bu Nurul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you.
Terima kasih, Pak Lutfi. Let me pick another question in the chat column, or is there any other one wanna asking question directly? There is no. Okay, there is a question from Bapak. Pak Denny, maaf mau ditunggu. Saya akan membacakan dulu pertanyaan dari kolom chat. There is a question from Bapak Agung Gumilian. The question is maybe for Bapak Alexander. The question is like this: are the ochre always attribute to Neolithic age? What is the significance the ochre for spiritual purpose in Neolithic people? That is the question. For Pak Dr. Andre Vetabares, could you please answer the question? No, I think this is the question for Bapak Alexander. Mr. Alexander.
Okay.
We have
Um,
Alexander Popov
yeah.
and Alexander Pakunov.
Yeah.
Two
I
Alexander.
forget, I forget the name of the speakers. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but I can't answer the question because my main specialization is the upper paleolithic pigments, and I'm not working with the site of the Neolithic periods. So sorry.
And we don't have any Neolithic materials from this cave, only Epipaleolithic and
Bronze Age.
Yes, Bronze Age.
From the Bronze Age
We
side.
don't have any Neolithic materials.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Elena and Mr. Alexander. Let me invite Bapak. Is there any more question?
Bapak Dani Hilman was raised.
Oh ya, Pak Dani Hilman, please take your time.
Ya, terima kasih. Selamat siang rekan-rekan semua. Saya tadi I saw your presentation, Elena and Alexander, very interesting. But I show that it's a bit intermittent because I'm in the on the other business in the hospitals and taking care of my daughter. But I show that some interesting pictures on the cave paintings that doesn't look like a primitive paintings. Ages is more than 10,000 years old. There's a painting of the camels. It could be the something like the plana. I don't know in English, plana. Something that people riding camels, and also some artifacts from Jomons. I think if I'm not wrong, the artifact is also very old. It's like more than 10,000 years old. Yeah, so it's back to Pleistocene age, Paleolithic. It doesn't seem to be primitive. Also, some of them wearing clothes, like even an astronauts, if we can say that. And also in a painting, cave painting in Indonesia, like in Maros, also according to our colleagues in art, it's also not a primitive paintings. He said that even if we ask the art students, like the PhD art student, to do the same thing as the ancient people do, it's not easy. It's a high art. So the question is, that's all artifacts. The fact is from the Paleolithics, where we consider it's a hunter and gatherer period before the Neolithic revolutions or the agriculture fine. Yeah. So my question is, what do you think about that? Is that still fits our history as we understand? How high is the culture before the agricultural revolutions, the start of our civilization, as we call it? Thank you.
Thank you. Terima kasih Pak Dani. For the speaker, could you please answer the question?
Okay.
Elena. Yeah, please.
This is for yes, Mrs. Elena. Could you please answer the question?
It was question for me. Yes. Okay. We have on our sites a lot of images of different epochs, and because of it, yes, I agree that in Paleolithic time we have very interesting motifs. Yes, very hard made motifs, and some animals like this like mammoths, yes, in Kappa Cave, and our new images. But it's very hard to answer because on Chukotka sites we have rock art of Stone Age, yes, but this Stone Age can be in this region can be in first millennium after Christ. Yes, it's very hard to determine this determine when appears some iron on Chukotka. Yes, and because of it we used to date this rock art of Stone Age. Unfortunately, we don't have some stone materials of this period for this site. Yes, to understand which doing ceramics, but it's very different style of ceramics and paintings in Europe. Yes, in Stone Age, in Paleolithic time, Upper Paleolithic time, and in Kapova Cave and in Chukotka, because it's very different cultures and types of life. Yes, all they was hunters here and gathering, but it's very different type of maybe not type of landscape, because it was tundra landscape in Epipaleolithic time in Europe and in Chukotka now, and maybe 2 millennium after. But it's hard to understand the type of vision of art, I think, yes, in Epipaleolithic time in Europe, Epipaleolithic time in Ural, in Russia, yes, and maybe in last Stone Age in Chukotka. But now I think that it's very interesting to analyze these motifs, because we have a lot of methods to understand motifs and ceramics, because a lot of images we can see only with these methods of 3D modeling. Yes, so a lot of images we can see with these methods of for analyze pigments in Kapova Cave. Yes, because a lot of images in Kapova Caves we can see without some pigment cards and another methods. But this camel in Kapova Cave, it's very interesting because interesting images, because we have absolutely dating for this camel. It's Epipaleolithic images. And another questions, if some people in Bronze Age, maybe in Epipaleolithic time, but in 10 millenniums ago, yes, they can they visit this cave a lot of time, yes, to renovate these images, to do some new images with this camel, maybe horse, maybe mammoth. Yes, we don't have we have only one date, absolute date for this camel, and it's very big question if this camel can be renovated, yes, another time. But we don't have some Neolithic, Mesolithic materials for this cave, only Bronze Age and Iron Age, and it's very poor material. Because of it, we think that this cave wasn't very interesting, yes, religion place to some people in this time. But in Iron Age, in now in time of Bashkiran people, yes, it was a very very big and very interesting cave for some ethnic region. And now we understand that all these images can be visited, can be renovated another time. Well, I think that it's an answer for your question. Maybe you can I can give some materials about this camel because it's very interesting. It's unique images in Paleolithic time, but we have another camel in Ignatievskaya cave near Kapova cave, but it's a very very strange image in Ignatieva cave. In Mongolia, we have another camel, but it's not absolutely camel. Yes, this image, it's very interesting to understand the zoomorphic motifs of Paleolithic art and to understand which animals were living near this cave in this region in this time, because we don't have enough some archaeological materials of camels in the Paleolithic in Bashkiria and Ural. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Elena. Pak Denny, apa masih ada yang ingin ditanyakan?
I think Pak Olmek would like to say something also. I mean, it's also open to Alexander, if you would like to.
In your question, you mentioned the interesting clothes on Japanese figurines on Dogo, like astronauts. Yes, it's really interesting. And for today, Japanese archaeologists published about 15,000 of figurines, and many figurines, they really demonstrate elements of clothes or some attributes. But in most cases, the interpretation is that this is a part of normal clothes, or this is a part of shamanic clothes, shamanic attributes. No astronauts, of course. Sorry.
Pak Denny, thank you so much, Pak Alexander, Mr. Alexander. Pak Denny, is there another question?
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Pak. Now let me invite Bapak Heri Sofyan to talk. Is there any question, Pak Heri Sofyan? I think.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I cannot open the camera because the connection is not really good in here. Apologize for that. But I want to ask about to Mr. Olmek about the bronze and iron period in Russia. It looks like the same in Indonesia because we have the quite same period with the Southeast Asia, whereas the bronze emerged around the 1200 BC, and suddenly the iron is rise around the 500 BC. So I have a question about the models of the bronze irons influence the Russia. Is because it's influenced by China, or there is something others is like from the West Asia, or probably the others who influence this material, because you said it's the artifact of metals is not from the Russia, but it's import.
Okay.
And my second question is, there is a Chalcolithic period in Russia. So thank you, only two.
Okay, I will start with the second question. Yes, talking about the periodization and the names of the periods. Russia is a huge country, huge territory. So for some parts in western parts of Russia, or better to say Eastern Europe, archaeologists use the term Chalcolithic, like a period between the Neolithic and the beginning of the Iron Age, or the Age of Metals, yes. But for the territory of the Russian Far East, yes, you're absolutely right. We have very similar situation with Indonesia, or better to say the inland island part of Southeast Asia. and it's close to, in terms of chronology, it's close in terms of the joint appearance of all metals and the absence of local metallurgy on the initial stage. As for the Russian Far East, most of the first metal items, they were imported from neighboring territories, from territories of China, modern territories of China and Korea, of course. Later, there were also some local metal workshops and local metallurgy. But the beginning, yes, is connected with the import and the influence from the territory of China. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So,
thank you so much. Now let me take another question from Bapak Adi Agus Octaviana. Pak Adi, apa tidak ingin bertanya secara langsung atau saya bacakan saja? Baik, I think I will read the question. It's the question for Mr. Alexander Pakunov. The question is like this: how to determine the heat treatment related to the range of color of ochre, hematite on rock art? We have in Indonesia rock art like in East Borneo and South Sulawesi, from orange to dark red and purple. There any reference of experimental for it? Mr. Alexander Pakunov, question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. To determine the heat treatment, I use transmission electron microscopy to analyze hematite crystals, and found that many of the samples show that inside the hematite crystal there are a lot of micropores that is usually attributed to transformation of goethite to hematite at a relatively low temperature. So it's about the first stage of the transformation. We also made an experiment using in situ heat treatment of the archaeological samples in the column of transmission electron microscope. That allows us to build a database of the with the reference images of the heat treated pigment at various temperatures, and then we have an ability to use this database to determine the temperature of the heat treatment of the archaeological samples from the cultural layers. I also use a synchrotron radiation facility to investigate some samples, and it's a well-known method and well-known features of the X-ray diffraction patterns. It calls selective broadening, and we found that the same samples that showed the traces of the pore formation inside the crystals. These samples are also exhibit selective broadening using powder X-ray diffraction. So I use mainly these two methods, and I also found several evidences of heat treatment as gradient coloring of some pigment particles, and the clear border between the hematite and goethite inside the small pigment particles, and other evidence. So now I'm working on the paper on this topic, and I think it will be published in a year. Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Alexander, for the answer. I see there is a question from Bapak Lutfi. Do you want to talk, or I read it for the speaker? Bapak Lutfi.
Bacakan aja Bu Nurul.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there's a question from Pak Lutfi. I see from the presentation from Dr. Andre and Elena, in the distribution of archaeological site only find around area of Russia. How about the find in the middle area of Russia? Is it not found there, or the archaeological research not yet due? For Mr. Andre, could you please answer the question?
That's a interesting question. The number of archaeological sites and the intensity of archaeological investigations depend on many aspects. And first of all, if you look at the territory of Siberia and Russian Far East, it mostly depends on landscape, of nature, or temperature. In many parts of Russia, it's possible to do excavations only starting from May to September, not for a long period. So in terms of intensity of archaeological excavations and researches, the eastern part of Europe, western part of Russia, southern Siberia, southern part of the Russian Far East, yes, the most intensively explored territories. The other territories are waiting for archaeologists. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Pak Andre.
Mrs. Elena, is there any answer from you?
Well, I show the answer to this question. On the site of our institute, we have archaeological map. It's very interesting to analyze this map because we have a long story for archaeological studies in our country, but I'm only can answer for rock art sites, yes, because it's my term for investigation, yes. But with rock art site, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of areas with which need to be investigate, yes, to understand the quantity of these rock art sites. But with all archaeological, yes, investigation in Russia, we have a long story. In central part, we have a lot of archaeological sites, a lot of materials. We don't have so many archaeologists. Yes, we have more sites and more cultures, archaeological than the people who can work with these materials and with these sites, unfortunately. Yes, and you can see on our site this map with, but only in Russia, I'm sorry, yes, with a lot of type of archaeological sites for different epochs, yes, so with different materials. To understand that the central part is very intensive, have very intensive materials, and Siberia, Far East, it's more interesting for us because we don't have a lot of history of study of this region. Yes, I answered.
Thank you, Mrs. Elena. Is there any other question or any participant want to ask a question? Please raise your hand or write down your question in the chat column. It can be in Zoom and YouTube. Is it another question? for all of the participants. Ada pertanyaan lagi Bapak dan Ibu semuanya? Silakan. Is there any another question?
The last question is for our presenters. Will you share your presentation, please? Yeah.
Yes, with great pleasure. Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. We hope we can use it for make some base collaboration for the next project.
Thank you.
I think there is no another question. There is no more. So there is no more question. I also didn't see any question in YouTube.
Pak Nurul,
Ya, ya Pak.
mungkin saya ada satu pertanyaan ya. I have one question.
Ya.
Maybe for speaker can respond my question. But actually my question not related with the site in Russia, but I would like to know about the history of archaeological research between Russia and Indonesia, because I think I would like to know what Russian archaeologists interested about research in Indonesia, and since when, and in what topic the research in archaeology in Indonesia by Russian archaeologists, or maybe Russian institution is okay also for me to know. Thank you.
Okay, may I answer? First of all, there were no direct archaeological projects between Russian or Soviet archaeologists and Indonesian archaeologists before. I mean, joint archaeological expeditions or joint projects. There were some period of interest starting, let me say, after Second World War. There were several visits of Russian scientists to Indonesia. First of all, ethnographers, not archaeologists, but ethnographers. But these ethnographers, they also were visiting some museums and universities in Jakarta, and they were observing some collection of archaeological materials, Paleolithic materials. There were some short articles in Russian journals and magazines in 1950s and 1960s and 1970s. There are also several archaeological publications, books devoted to the Stone Age of Southeast Asia in whole, including Indochina, Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia, mostly based on the literature of 20th century, the middle 20th century, 1950s, 1960s. As far as I know, there were some visits or participation of Russian archaeologists in the conferences on the territory of Indonesia devoted to the history, literature, ethnography, culture of Indonesia. In Moscow, there is an institute of, let's say, Eastern Research Institute, special Eastern Research Institute. And they have a number of specialists who are interested in modern or history of modern history of Indonesia. But as for archaeological studies, almost nothing. Only several years ago, thanks to our colleague Lutfi Yandri, my colleague Alexander and I, we were able to visit Java and to visit a number of fantastic archaeological sites, including sites like such sites as Gunung Padang and several sites in Halimun Mountains. And it was the first, as far as I know, the first visit of Russian archaeologists with concrete goal. That was the beginning. That's all the history I know. Also, our meeting today is a very important step for collaboration. So I know a number of foreign archaeologists from Australia, New Zealand, from Japan, who are working in Indonesia and are excavating different sites from Paleolithic to Middle Ages. It would be fantastic if we could find ways to collaborate and to organize any exchange of ideas, students, graduate students, specialists, and topics which we would be interested in, including, as you see, ancient art, rock art, cave art. What is interesting for me personally, for example, megalithic, of course, for me and for my colleague Alexander, Neolithic period, shell mounds, sites, pottery, industry, Paleometal age, migrations, contacts, exchange of cultures between inland and island territories of Southeast Asia. So the great variety of topics they are possible for cooperation. Thank you so much. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you. I interested because I saw your picture in the one of megalithic area. That's the area actually my anthropological site, yeah. During my undergraduate and postgraduate, I researched on the one of indigenous people group there. Yes, thank you.
Very interesting group of people and very interesting anthropological and archaeological context. Thank you so much. I would like to be back to this area one day.
Sure. Yeah. Welcome. Makasih, Mbak.
Terima kasih, Pak Heri. I think there is no more question. Now, before we end our activities, we will take a picture together. Please, ladies and gentlemen, Bapak dan Ibu, turn on your camera. Silakan diaktifkan kameranya. Kita akan berfoto bersama. Ada beberapa slide, ada 2 slide. Please turn on your camera, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Mohon diaktifkan kameranya.
3 kali kayaknya. Ada 3 sepertinya.
Ya. Okay, the first slide. I will helping screen capture. Please smile. 1, 2, 3.
Mbak Karin, apa kabar?
Okay, the second slide. One, two, three.
So?
Yes, I think it's finished. Now, selanjutnya akan ada pemutaran video profil KR1 yang akan ditayangkan oleh Pak Anti. Silakan Pak Anti, ditayangkan videonya.
Thank you so much. Very interesting.
Thank you, sir. Baik Bapak dan Ibu, sebelum mengakhiri acara webinar pada sore hari ini, ada pengumuman penting yang akan saya sampaikan terkait dengan pelaksanaan webinar multikulturalisme seri ke-6 yang akan dilaksanakan bulan depan oleh kelompok riset peradaban Hindu-Buddha pada tanggal 21 Juli 2022 dengan tema Pemukiman Kuno Masa Hindu-Buddha. Ada 3 orang pembicara, yaitu Bapak Sugeng Rianto, Ibu Wati Yusmaini, dan Ibu Triwoyani, dengan moderator Bapak Haryadi. Baik Bapak dan Ibu.
Can you translate it? I hope Andre also, the friend from Russia, can be joined with next webinar.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because Andre also not know about your speech. Okay.
Thank you. With pleasure.
Yes, there is another webinar that will be held next month in 21 July with the theme of Hindu Buddhist Asian settlement. There are three speakers. They are Ibu Wati Yusmaini, also Bapak Sugeng Rianto, and Ibu Triwoyani. We hope you can join our next webinar next month.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Pak Andre and Elena, the next webinar, we try to presenting about classical period of Indonesia from archaeological finds.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We would like to thank you very much for all of the speakers today. Thank you so much for your precious time that you spend for this webinar. We learn so many things. We learn so many knowledge. We are really inspired. And we really hope we can meet another time. Saya mewakili dari Pusat Riset Arkeologi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Baik Bapak Ibu, saya mewakili dari Pusat Riset Arkeologi Prasejarah dan Sejarah mengucapkan terima kasih kepada seluruh peserta yang hadir dan berpartisipasi secara aktif dalam kegiatan webinar ini. Semoga kegiatan ini bermanfaat dan menjadi inspirasi bagi kita semua. Terima kasih banyak. Mohon maaf atas segala kekurangannya. Semoga kita bisa bertemu di webinar-webinar lainnya. Salam sehat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam. Thank you, Nurul. Excellent moderator. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih semuanya. Terima kasih Nurul. Putri.
Terima kasih Bu Indah.
Makasih Mbak Indah.
Ya, sama-sama. Salam sehat selalu. Terima kasih Pak
Andri,
Terima kasih Lutfi.
Elena, Akunov.